trying to overcome inertia around here. You actually campaigned for governor advocating an increase in the gas tax.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. And my thinking was on this is if you're going to propose and tell people, they know what's aging, they know what needs to be done, they're stuck, and we have the data on congestion in the Twin Cities. We understand about, especially down to our township bridges in a very rural state. As I said, we have the 5th highest amount of road miles of any place in the country, that we had to do that. And I thought it was disingenuous not to do that. So I ran on this, and ironically enough, well, I guess maybe not ironically enough, pretty predictably enough, the irony came in this. The attack ads running against me were that I was going to raise the gas tax. My numbers went up as those ads were running because the public was saying, do something. Come up with a plan. And I think the ranking member said it, you said it, Mr. Chairman, you heard the mayor and the secretary say it. We're open for anything that's out there, but this stumbling along time to time makes planning impossible. And I don't care what you call it, we're seeing changes in storms, flooding, intense cold, that is adding to the cost of the maintenance of these roads and the building of it. At the same time, we're trying to figure out, and the states, again, I ask you, give us the flexibility to innovate as we move towards renewables and plug-in vehicles. But there's nobody out there is thinking that we can do this without investing, and nobody has put a plan forward who said, well, there's plenty of money out there, you're spending it in the wrong place. That is fundamentally untrue, especially in the states, and the governor's budgets will reflect that.
Thank you, Tim. Mayor, you mentioned a number of tragic and difficult instances with transit. This is a point I'd just like to emphasize, because with a $106 billion backlog to bring existing transit up to a state of good repair, let alone the new transit you're building in LA, I think this is critical, because if things break down, people can't be at work at time, their lives are actually endangered, they're not using it. We just...
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. And I think lots of times people think about cities as places they don't represent, when in reality we know, for instance, in Long Beach, Mr. Lowenthal's district, in Los Angeles, 43% of the goods that come into America to every single one of your districts comes through those ports. Same thing with making sure that New York functions and Boston functions and the Washington area functions. When Washington's metro system was breaking down, Accelerator for America came in, helped the 3 jurisdictions of Virginia, Maryland, and the district get something done. But it's a tougher thing to go to voters later and say, hey, we want you to raise taxes to maintain something. They expect we should have already been doing that. And that's why it's so critical the federal government be that place that we can also come to and partner with. We have stepped up. We're not coming here with empty hats in hand. They're at least half filled. We're asking you to fill it up to the top.
Right. And Secretary LaHood, you were very impassioned about the need for additional funding. I appreciate that. But you made the point about all the people who, all the local jurisdictions and states have raised it and have pending raises. So does the Fed really need to do anything if all those states are doing it? Can't they just do it on their own?
Of course not. And the idea that the federal government is going to get out of the business of building roads and bridges goes against the issue that I raised about safety. We have to have good safety standards. And we also have to have a commitment. When people go to Europe and ride the trains, they come back scratching their head. Why don't we have this in America? Because Europe invested in trains. What did we do? Eisenhower had a vision, connect America. And what happened? He signed the interstate bill. 50 years later, we have the best interstate system in the world because the federal government made the investment. Let's don't let that deteriorate to the point where, and the states don't have any money. My home state is Illinois. We're broke. We're broke. And a lot of states are struggling, and then infrastructure just takes a much lower level. We set the standard here in Washington, and we set the standard for safety, and we set the standard for funding. Let's get back into that business again.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, my time's expired. To Ranking Member Graves.